My husband demanded I sell my downtown Seattle condo to cover his brother's $2.5 million casino disaster. His mother backed him up and even threatened me with consequences if I didn't comply. But where would my 4-year-old daughter Emma and I go? So I did what any mother would do when cornered. Let me tell you if I was wrong. I was 29, working as a freelance marketing consultant, when I first met Blake at Pike Place Market during the Saturday Farmers Market. He was this charming financial advisor who bought me overpriced artisan coffee and actually listened when I talked about my dream of opening my own consulting firm. We clicked instantly. "You're different, Jane," he told me on our third date as we walked along Elliott Bay. "Most women don't understand how important family loyalty is to me." I thought it was admirable. God, I was so naive. We dated for 2 years before he proposed at the Space Needle, right during the sunset. His whole family was there. His parents, Robert and Helen, his younger brother Trevor, even his Aunt Margaret. Everyone cheered. Helen actually teared up and pulled me into this warm hug. "Welcome to the family, sweetheart," she whispered in my ear. I felt like I was joining something solid and loving, something I'd never really had growing up with my single mom who worked double shifts at the hospital. But marriage changed everything overnight. Suddenly every decision in our Capitol Hill apartment needed Helen's stamp of approval. What furniture I chose, what I cooked for family dinners, even how I organized Blake's home office. Everything had to pass through her mental inspection committee. She'd show up unannounced with her Louis Vuitton handbag and that practiced smile, scanning our place like she was conducting a military inspection. "You really chose this shade of green for the bedroom," she once said, running her manicured fingers along the sage accent wall like it personally offended her. I suppose it's modern." Then she'd drift to the kitchen. "You're feeding him quinoa salads again, honey? Successful men need substantial meals. Steak, not this health food nonsense." I'd bite my tongue and nod because Blake never intervened. Not once. He'd just kiss her cheek and say, "Mom means well, babe." "Mom called" became Blake's daily greeting when he walked through our door. Not "How was your day?" or "I missed you." Always something Helen needed, wanted, or disapproved of. When I got pregnant with Emma, I thought surely things would shift. We'd become our own little family unit, right? "Well, you're eating too much sugar," Helen announced during one of her surprise visits, eyeing my bowl of Ben & Jerry's like it was poison. "My grandchild doesn't need all those artificial ingredients." "The doctor says everything's fine," I replied gently. "Doctors don't know everything, dear," she said, patting my belly like I was livestock. "Trust me, I raised 2 strong boys." Blake just sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of Helen's control over our lives, and Trevor's problems were about to become our nightmare. When Emma was born, tiny and perfect with Blake's blue eyes and my stubborn chin, I thought surely now he'd prioritize us. Instead, he started disappearing more often. "Mom needs help with Dad's medication," or "Trevor called. He's in another jam." Trevor was forever in some kind of mess. Lost jobs, evicted from apartments, borrowed money that never found its way back to the lenders. He was 26 and still lived like a college freshman with a serious gambling problem. "He's family," Blake would say whenever I questioned it. "You don't abandon family, Jane. What about your actual family?" I gestured toward Emma playing with her blocks on our living room floor. "What about us?" But Blake was already putting on his coat, heading to whatever crisis Trevor had created this time. 3 years into our marriage, I felt like I was drowning. Freelance deadlines, daycare pickup, bedtime stories. All while Blake played the devoted son and brother everywhere except home. "Daddy's at Grandma's again," Emma said one evening, coloring at our kitchen table. "Yeah, sweetie, he'll be back soon." But I was lying. Some nights he didn't come home at all. The first real warning sign came on a Thursday in October. Blake walked in with Helen trailing behind him like an expensive storm cloud. No hello to Emma, who ran to hug his legs. No kiss for me. "Jane, we need to talk," he said, his voice strangely flat. "Okay, what's going on?" Helen stepped forward, her smile sharp as broken glass. Trevor made some poor choices in Atlantic City. Poor choices. Blake laughed bitterly. He lost $400,000, Jane. 400,000. The words hit me like ice water. How does someone lose $400,000? High-stakes blackjack, private tables. He got in way over his head with some very dangerous people. My stomach dropped. Okay, that's terrible, but what does that have to do with us? Helen's mask slipped just enough to show the steel underneath. Well, darling, real wives support their husbands' family obligations. Family takes care of family after all. We drained our savings account, Blake continued. My 401k, everything. But it's still not enough. I stared at them both, waiting for someone to say this was temporary, that Trevor would pay it back somehow. He needs another $50,000, Blake said finally. $50,000. My voice came out as a whisper. Blake, we don't have $50,000. That's when Helen spoke again, her voice sickeningly sweet. You have that lovely little condo downtown, dear. It must be worth quite a bit now. The room went silent except for Emma's soft humming as she colored. I stared at them both, waiting for someone to say this was a joke. You want me to take a loan against my condo? For Trevor's gambling debts. Not a loan, Blake said quietly. We need you to sell it. The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. My condo. The one I'd saved for years to buy. The one I'd purchased 2 years before I even met Blake. My security blanket, my independence. That's insane, I whispered. But Helen was already reaching for her purse, pulling out real estate brochures like she'd been planning this conversation for weeks. Blake, that condo is Emma's future security. I bought it before we even met. It's not marital property. Helen waved her hand dismissively. It's a valuable asset, and right now your brother-in-law needs it more than a 4-year-old needs a backup plan. Where exactly do you expect us to live? Emma's preschool is 2 blocks away. This is her home. Blake rolled his eyes. We both have good jobs, Jane. We can rent somewhere. It's not like we'll be homeless. Since when is Trevor's gambling addiction our financial responsibility? Helen's mask slipped completely, showing the steel underneath. Since you married into this family, sweetheart. When you said, I do, you said yes to all of us. I said yes to Blake, I shot back, not to funding his brother's casino habit. Blake's jaw tightened. Trevor made a mistake. He's family, Jane. You don't turn your back on family. What about your actual family? I gestured toward Emma, still innocently coloring. What about her stability? Her future? She's 4, Helen retorted coldly. She'll adapt. Children are remarkably resilient. That's not the point. Darling, Helen interrupted, her voice dropping to a whisper that made my blood freeze. You don't really have a choice here. I stared at her. Excuse me. That's when Blake pulled out a manila folder from his briefcase. I've already contacted Morrison Realty, got preliminary paperwork drawn up. We just need your signature. My hands started shaking. You what? And if you decide to be difficult about this, Helen continued, stepping closer like a predator, well, let's just say we know some very good family law attorneys. Custody battles can be so messy and so expensive, especially for single mothers with unstable living situations. The threat hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. They were talking about taking Emma. But here's what they didn't know. I'd been preparing for this moment without even realizing it. 2 months earlier, when Blake started prioritizing his family's drama over ours, something in my gut had started screaming warnings. It's the same instinct that kept me safe when my mom's boyfriends got too drunk. That hypervigilance that kicks in when people you trust start acting like strangers. So I'd done something I never thought I'd have to do. I started protecting myself. I'd opened a separate bank account at Wells Fargo and redirected all my freelance payments there. I'd even consulted with a family law attorney about setting up a trust for Emma's future and putting the condo into it. Looking back now, after the bomb they'd just dropped, I knew it was the smartest decision I'd ever made. I see, I said finally. You've really thought this through. Blake's shoulders relaxed slightly. I knew you'd understand once you heard the whole situation. You're a good wife, Jane. A good sister-in-law. I looked down at Emma, still building her tower of crayons, completely unaware that the adults around her were trying to steal her future. You're absolutely right, I said calmly. I need to think about this properly. But I wasn't thinking about selling anything. I was thinking about survival. The next morning, while Blake was at his downtown office and Helen was probably planning how to spend my money, I made a phone call that would change everything. Davidson and Associates, this is Monica. Hi, it's Jane Mitchell. I need to speak with Ms. Davidson immediately. It's urgent. Within 2 hours, I was sitting across from Rachel Davidson, the sharp-eyed family law attorney who'd helped me set up Emma's trust fund months earlier. They threatened to take your daughter if you don't sell property that's legally protected in a trust? She asked, scribbling notes furiously. That's exactly what happened. She looked up, her dark eyes bright with something that looked like anticipation. Jane, do you realize what you've just handed me? A slam dunk case. By that afternoon, the papers were filed. Legal separation, emergency custody petition, and a restraining order preventing anyone from harassing me about the sale of trust property. Blake was served at his Pine Street office the next day. The phone started ringing at 6 p.m. I let it go to voicemail. Jane, what the hell is this? Blake's voice cracked with panic. Divorce papers. You can't be serious. This is insane. Call me back right now. The second voicemail was from Helen. You ungrateful little witch. After everything this family has done for you, how dare you betray us like this? I played that one twice, then saved it as evidence. The pounding on my door started around 8 p.m. Through the peephole, I could see Helen's face, red and twisted with rage. Open this door, Jane. We need to discuss this. Mommy, why is Grandma shouting? Emma asked from behind me. Because some people think the louder they yell, the more right they are, sweetheart. I opened the door just wide enough to hand Helen an envelope. What's this? She snarled. A copy of the trust documents. Turns out Emma's condo isn't mine to sell. Hasn't been for months. It belongs to her now. I'm just the trustee, managing it for her future. Her face went white as expensive paper. You planned this. I protected my daughter. There's a difference. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Helen pounded for another 15 minutes before giving up. That night, Emma and I made hot chocolate and watched Moana. She curled up next to me on the couch, completely oblivious to the war being waged around her little world. Mommy, are you sad? She asked, looking up at me with those bright blue eyes. No, baby girl. Mommy's just thinking. About what? About how sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices to keep the people they love safe. She nodded seriously and went back to watching the movie. At 4 years old, she already understood more about protection than her father ever had. My phone buzzed with another text from Blake. This is crazy, Jane. Mom's lawyer says you can't do this. We're family. I turned my phone face down and pulled Emma closer. Family. They kept using that word like it was a magic spell that could make me forget they'd threatened to take my child. But real family doesn't threaten. Real family protects. 6 months later, Emma and I were still in our Capitol Hill condo. Well, legally it was hers now. I'd painted her room lavender and bought her a princess bed that made her squeal with joy every morning. The divorce was swift and brutal. Blake tried to claim I'd hidden marital assets, but the trust had been established before any of this drama started. His lawyer couldn't touch it. The real satisfaction came when Helen's threats backfired spectacularly. Rachel Davidson had recorded everything. The voicemails, the documented threats, even Helen's admission that they'd already contacted real estate agents before talking to me. When the family court judge heard the recording of Helen threatening to take Emma away from me, his face went stone cold. Mrs. Mitchell, he'd said, not only are you awarded full custody, but I'm also granting a permanent restraining order against the respondent and his mother. Any further harassment will result in immediate jail time. Blake's face had crumpled like a paper bag. Helen had gone pale as snow. Last I heard, Blake moved in with Trevor in some studio apartment in Ballard. 2 grown men sharing a Murphy bed, trying to chip away at casino debt by selling off furniture and electronics. Apparently, dangerous people don't accept payment plans. Helen stopped calling after her attorney explained that trust funds are legally bulletproof, and that her recorded threats about custody could land her in serious legal trouble. Turns out threatening to take someone's child is frowned upon by family court judges. Who knew? Robert, Blake's father, actually reached out to apologize. He said he'd had no idea what Helen and Blake were planning and that he was ashamed of their behavior. He still sends Emma birthday cards. Trevor. Well, let's just say his gambling problem solved itself when he had to leave Seattle in a hurry. Something about loan sharks and broken kneecaps. Blake won't talk about it, but I heard through mutual friends that Trevor's working construction in Phoenix now, sending every spare dollar back to his creditors. I got a text from Blake last week. I miss you both. Can we talk? I made a mistake. I didn't respond. Some mistakes don't get do-overs. My consulting business is thriving now that I can focus on my clients instead of managing family drama. Emma's in kindergarten at the local elementary school, making friends and learning to read. She asks about Daddy sometimes, but she's adjusted better than I expected. Some people think family means saying yes to everything, avoiding boundaries, and accepting damage just because you share DNA or marriage certificates. They're wrong. Real family means protecting each other's dreams, not sacrificing them. It means building each other up, not tearing each other down for spare parts when someone else makes bad choices. Helen was right about one thing. I didn't have a choice. But not the way she meant it. Chose my daughter. Chose our future. Chose us. And I'd make that choice again every single day. The funny thing about protecting yourself is that it looks like betrayal to the people who were planning to use you. But sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. And sometimes walking away is the only way to save yourself. These days, Emma and I have movie nights every Friday. We make kettle corn and watch Disney films, and she falls asleep curled up next to me on the couch. Sunday mornings we make pancakes shaped like animals and eat them while watching cartoons. It's quiet. It's peaceful. It's ours. Last month, Emma asked me why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt the people they love, I told her. And when that happens, the people who got hurt have to make choices too, to keep themselves safe. Did you keep us safe, Mommy? I did my best, baby girl. She nodded seriously and went back to her coloring book. At 4 years old, she already understands that love isn't enough if it doesn't come with respect and protection. Blake's family taught me that some people see kindness as weakness, generosity as obligation, and boundaries as betrayal. But they also taught me that I'm stronger than I ever imagined, that I can stand up to threats and manipulation, that I can protect what matters most. The condo is worth even more now than when I bought it 6 years ago. Emma's trust fund is growing, securing her future in ways I never had as a kid with a single mom working double shifts. She'll have choices I never did. My business has expanded beyond my wildest dreams. Last month, I hired 2 employees, both single mothers who needed flexible schedules and understanding employers. We work from my home office, taking calls while our kids play in the next room. You've built something amazing here, my friend Carla said during our last coffee date. But don't you ever get lonely? It's a fair question. I'm 32 now, single, raising a daughter in a city where dating feels like navigating a minefield. But lonely? Well, lonely was being married to someone who valued his mother's approval over his daughter's security. Lonely was sitting at family dinners where I was treated like an outsider in my own life. Lonely was watching my husband choose everyone else over us, day after day. This isn't lonely. This is peace. Emma started piano lessons last month. She practices on the small keyboard we set up in the living room. Her little fingers finding melodies that make our home feel alive with music. When she plays, she gets this look of pure concentration, her tongue poking out slightly. Just like I used to do when I was focused on something important. "Mommy, listen to this," she'll call out, and I'll stop whatever I'm doing to hear her latest musical discovery. These moments, her laughter echoing through our hallways, her artwork covering our refrigerator, her questions about everything from why the sky is blue to where babies come from. These are the moments that remind me why I fought so hard. The trust fund documents are locked in my safe, along with copies of the custody papers and restraining orders. Emma doesn't need to know about any of that yet. Right now, she just needs to be a kid in a home where she's loved unconditionally and protected fiercely. Sometimes I wonder what Blake tells people about why we're not together anymore. Does he paint himself as the victim? Does he claim I was unreasonable? It doesn't matter. The truth lives in the legal documents and in the peace of our daily lives. 6 months ago, I received an unexpected visitor. Robert, Blake's father, stood on my doorstep holding a small wrapped gift and wearing the kind of sheepish expression that suggested he'd been building up courage for this visit. "I know I don't have the right to ask," he said, "but could I see Emma for just a few minutes? It's her birthday, and I wanted to give her this personally." Almost said no. The restraining order didn't cover him, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. Then Emma appeared beside me, curious about the visitor. "Grandpa Robert," she squealed, remembering him from before everything fell apart. For 2 hours, he sat on my living room floor building Legos with Emma while I watched from the kitchen, ready to intervene at the first sign of manipulation or guilt trips. But there were none. Before he left, he pulled me aside. "Helen and Blake were wrong," he said quietly. "What they tried to do to you and Emma, it was unforgivable. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." "Why didn't you?" asked. He was quiet for a long moment. "Because I've been enabling Helen's controlling behavior for 30 years. I told myself it was easier to go along than to fight. But watching what she tried to do to you..." He shook his head. "I'm filing for divorce, Jane. I should have done it years ago." That conversation changed something for me. Not forgiveness. That's still a work in progress. But understanding. Blake wasn't born manipulative. He was raised by a woman who weaponized family loyalty and a father too afraid to set boundaries. It doesn't excuse what he did, but it explains it. Last week, Emma asked me if she could invite some friends over for a sleepover. As I watched 6 little girls turn my living room into a blanket fort while singing Taylor Swift songs at the top of their lungs, I realized something profound. This is what family looks like. Chosen family, biological family, created family. It doesn't matter. What matters is that everyone feels safe, loved, and valued. Blake texts sometimes, usually late at night when he's probably been drinking. "I know I messed up. I miss Emma's laugh. Mom's in therapy now. Can we try again?" I don't respond anymore. Not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. Some doors once closed should stay that way. So tell me, was I wrong? What would you have done in my place? Because sometimes the best thing you can do for someone you love is refuse to enable their worst impulses, even if they're family, even if it costs you everything you thought you wanted. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away. And sometimes walking away is the only way to save yourself and the people who truly matter. Emma is 7 now, gap-toothed and brilliant, with dreams of becoming either a veterinarian or a pop star. Possibly both. She lives in a home where her voice matters, where her future is secure, and where love doesn't come with conditions or threats. And that's worth more than any family's approval could ever be. That's the truth I'll stand by forever.